Okay, welcome everybody. This is the Carmel Child Development Program's Town Hall Orientation Meeting. I'm Laura Dunn, I'm the Director of the Child Development Programs, and I'd like to introduce Trisha Zarevich, the Superintendent's Assistant. You have a longer title than that, right? Paul Bean, he is the Chief Technology Officer and Student Services, and they are assisting me with this meeting tonight. And Trisha, do you want to say a couple words about how that works?
Sure. So good evening, everyone. Welcome. We just want to remind you that I'll be communicating some responses just to remind you to raise your hands. The chat's not being monitored for questions, so please don't put your questions there and expect an answer tonight. Maybe she might be able to get to it later, but we'll do our best to get through as many questions or comments as possible. At the end, Laura will do a brief presentation and then we'll go from there. But I'll remind you, the one other thing I ask is please don't raise your hand and unraise your hand if you're trying to get further up in the line, because it actually puts you further back in the line, even though we try to capture it, just so you know. Okay, other than that, we will go ahead and start with Laura, and I'll send some chats in between so that you guys can understand how it's going.
And one more note, Laura, it would be that we are going to do this presentation in two parts. The first part is for everybody, all parents, whether they're employees of the district or just other members of the community. The second part of the meeting will be for staff only for their specific questions. So Laura will announce when we're at that point of the meeting. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, I'm just going to pull up my PowerPoint for you guys. So welcome. Again, to ask the questions, you raise your hand and Trisha will put you into the queue and you'll be called on to speak. I'm going to very short presentation here. I sent out an email with quite a lot of details to the Carmelo families, and so that may have spurred some questions that I want to be able to answer for everyone. And I'm happy to just go over that in more detail, but I just put the highlights here in this presentation for us. So basically, to ensure that the separation of cohorts, the child care centers are going to operate with limited hours. Originally, I wanted to open our original hours, but that is not going to be possible to keep the cohorts of children separate. And right now that's of utmost importance for the teacher's safety as well as all the children and families. So the infant toddler program is going to operate 7:30 to 4:30. I think that will give most parents plenty of time. It's only a 15-minute difference. The preschool programs at CCDC Carmelo will be open 8 to 5. And that is shortened by 1 hour on either side. Apple Pie, it's 8:30 to 4, and the Kashawa preschool will be 9:30 to 12:30. All of those will operate with cohorts of 8 or less and separated as much as possible by using outdoor spaces and some vacant rooms from the programs that are going distance learning on our Carmelo site. So once the district returns to in-person instruction, the hours will be expanded back to our normal 7 to 6 hours. And some of you, I know I've gotten an email already today asking if those hours just won't work for your family and you want to give us your notice. We are not holding anybody to a 30-day notice or anything like that. And I sincerely apologize if it won't work for your family at this time. It's such a fluid situation that I really have to make these decisions as we go. I'll go on, and if you have more questions, I'm going to get to the end of this presentation shortly, and you can ask me those questions then. So T-Rex and River Rec, I know some of you, this may be new information for you. It was discussed at the board meeting last week, but that due to the current distance learning model for TK through 12th grade, there won't be before and after school available to the public because there's not actually school to get before or after. No one will be on camp, all classes will be remote. The district's employees, we are going to discuss childcare options for you while you are teaching in your classrooms at the second half of this presentation. So if you are already enrolled in T-Rex or River Rec, no fees will be deposited. We have not deposited those registration fees or your first month's tuition as we were collecting those before we went into this full distance model. So you may request that your check be shredded. You don't need to, we can hold it in the safe. If you are registered, then your place will be reserved automatically for when we do go back in person and there are school hours again. You won't lose your space. If you do choose to unenroll, you can certainly re-enroll again once the order in-person instruction resumes, but you will have to request to be enrolled over again. So I leave that up to you, and you can contact our bookkeeper, Marie Dart Newell, if you would like any of those things to be done. So some things at Carmelo, I know I went over these in my email, but I will go over them with as much, detail as you need to. All adults will be wearing face coverings. Some teachers will also be wearing clear masks in addition to face coverings. Some will be wearing smocks and protective, other kind of protective equipment. Children and adults are required to wear face coverings upon arrival, so from your car to the classroom. Children will be encouraged to continue wearing their face mask, their face covering, while they're in their cohorts, but we will not force a child to keep it on if they're swinging it around and it's more safe for them just to set it aside, and the teachers will help them to try to keep distance during that period as much as possible. Our health policy will be strictly enforced, and I know we have a reputation of strictly enforcing that already, but it will be very strict. If your child has some health issues already, and like allergies or whatnot, and that might cause them to have a cough or sore throat, we need you to provide us with past your doctor's note saying that has been ongoing. We don't want to wait till it happens and then have it come up that they think that that's the case. If you know your child has some health issues, we want that to be already clearly stated on their emergency card. So temperatures will be taken upon arrival, as well as screening for any COVID symptoms. All the guidelines that are posted on the state website under covid19.ca.gov for child centers will be followed. There are extra hand washing stations being installed outside on the yards. We will have extra health and custodial support as well from the district. So now I'm open for questions for those preschool T-Rex and River Rec questions. Do we have any hands raised, Tricia?
Yeah, we've got one, and this is Paul, and I see the first one is our good friend Kate Wolcott. Kate, we're going to let you be the first speaker, and other folks, you can go ahead and raise your hands. We'll be keeping track of the questions in order. If you're an employee, please remember that the questions that apply only to employees should be saved for the end, because that portion of the meeting will be dedicated just to the employee questions. Kate, here you go. Oh, and I'm sorry, one other thing is that we're going to ask you to try to limit the question to about a minute so we can get as many in as possible. Thanks.
Hey everyone, can you hear me?
Hi, Kate.
Okay, hey Laura. So Kate here, Crosby's mom, and a question I have is, what scenario would warrant a class or a wing or the whole school to shut down due to concerns about the potential of COVID being present at Carmelo? And what would that look like?
Well, if we suspect that somebody has COVID, we would ask them to be tested or to stay home for the quarantine amount of time. And that is really, we will be in contact directly with the Department of Public Health, and they will be directing us how and when that happens. So it really won't be something where I'm going to decide, on a week by week basis when that would happen. It really is the Public Health Department who guides us on those kinds of decisions.
So is that then to say that if a student came to school and they were mimicking symptoms of COVID, which of course also like mimic symptoms of the common cold,
Right.
Would parents be notified like in an anonymous way that are maybe in that cohort?
That there was a child who had symptoms that we suspect were COVID related?
Yeah, I'm just wondering if it takes a positive test to then be notified. We recently went through the testing for COVID, and it took, over 10 days to get results. And I'm just curious what happens in the interim.
That's a good question. And as we haven't done it yet, I'm not really sure.
So
literally, I will be calling the health department. You know what I mean? If I feel like there's anyone who I suspect could be. What I wrote in my letter home is basically that if the symptoms cannot be explained by something else, like I know that there are lots of children, my own son included, who had lots of ear infections, So if your child has a fever and is kind of not acting themselves, and you take them to the doctor, and the doctor says, yep, you've got flaring double ear infections, let's put them on the antibiotic, and sure enough, 24 hours later, their fever goes away, they feel fine. We would want to monitor them for a minimum of 24 hours after being on that antibiotic and free of any kind of fever. Then we would go, yeah, okay, it's reasonable to believe that was from the ear infection, right? Allergies do not cause fevers. They may cause some drippy, snotty kind of stuff, but fever would definitely be, I would want something else ruled out before they return to school.
Thanks for that question, Kate. We're going to move on to Robin Coyne. Robin, you're next, and then Casey will be after that.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. So my question is similar. How will COVID symptoms be monitored for students and staff? And will parents have any contact with staff?
Okay, so yes, everybody will be monitored. Temperatures will be taken with a no-touch thermometer every day. And throughout the day, if we suspect there is somebody who is getting a fever. And then, of course, I have a whole list of my COVID symptoms I will be posting everywhere for people to look for and to monitor. Adults as well. Staff are going to be asked to sign in and monitor themselves and then have their temperature taken as well. There might be two possibilities for interactions with parents, and that is when the parents come into the center, the gates will be open. There's signage so that we can spread people out and go through 5 different entrances into the areas where they would go, and with signage on the floor to wait their turn to get to the door. The doors will remain open, but with a low gate so that the child can then have their temperature taken. The teacher can actually take the temperature of the adult as well. These are no-touch thermometers, remember, so they will be taking their temperature, asking the questions if anybody in their household has any symptoms. And then once they are cleared, the child will be let in through the small gate and asked to go wash their hands and put on a school face covering. So that could be a possible interaction with an adult, but it would be on the other side of a gate. If a parent needs to enter the classroom because their child is new to school and crying, we understand that that could be a possibility, and we will allow that for them to come into the classroom. Once they are screened, they will have to go wash their hands as well, and actually sit in an area of the classroom where the other children are at least 6 feet away from them, so that they could sit down and read their child a book or whatnot for a very limited amount of time, and only one adult, one parent could be allowed in the classroom at a time for that purpose only. I hope that answered it.
Thanks for that question, Robin. We're going to move on. It looks like Casey put her hand down, so it'll be Krista Barsati next. And just a second, Krista, I'm going to click the magical button, and here you go.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, Laura.
Hi.
I'm just wondering if there's any accommodations being made for families who decide to pull their students from Carmela for safety reasons.
Yes.
When school resumes, or they are feeling more comfortable enrolling their kid. I know my son spent some time on the wait list, so I'm just wondering if I'm going to get caught if I pull him if I'm not feeling comfortable right now.
Yes, absolutely. So right now we do have just a few people who are on a special wait list that is for that purpose exactly. So on this wait list, I put when their desire to come back is. Some people have a specific time that they feel comfortable. Some, and most of them are, they're going to let us know when they feel more comfortable. Once they let us know on that date, we will, and if we have another opening, we will contact them kind of activate them on that first list, and that list will have priority as far as the openings that come, so that if you haven't completely lost your place in line that way.
All right, thanks for that question, Krista. Look forward to seeing you around here. And next, we go back to Casey. It looks like, now there you are. And there you go.
Also new to me. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hey, Laura, just a quick question. I appreciate and understand the reduced hours of 8 to 5.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if I'm one of those parents that has to drop off at 8 and pick up at 5. I know that the teachers aren't going to work that full time. So what's the plan for when a teacher needs a bathroom break, or I'm dropping off 30 minutes before my child's teacher starts, kind of thing? Does that make sense? Or just with the mixing of cohorts?
Yes. I'm not going to be mixing cohorts. So if you are one, I might have to put out a whole nother survey. You know what I mean? You go, here are your choices.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping that people can be either 8 to 4:30 or 8:30 to 5, and I will assign teachers in that way as much as I possibly can. If there is a large number of people who need to go 8 to 5 and they can work within those boundaries, I suspect, and I know at least one of my teachers who are definitely willing to take an hour break and work that slightly longer shift. During those breaks would be during nap time, and I am going to have to utilize some of my classified staff to cover nap rooms so that they can have their lunch breaks and whatnot. But at that time, the children will be napping, and they will keep 6 feet away from the napping children.
Sure. And I assume, teachers are going to have a bathroom break and have a plan for kind of covering for each other. So there will be some mixing of, even though it's 1 to 8, ideally, I just don't really know how that's totally possible, right?
Well, okay, so there will be a person who will go, just like there has been for years, go around and give them their morning 15-minute break so they can use the bathroom and things like that. But we are going to arrange it so that the time that they give their break, it's during the time that cohort and teacher is outside on the yard, so that classified employee can keep distance from the children as much as they can while their teacher goes and uses the bathroom or does whatever and comes back, and then they go on to another group of children and teacher.
All right, thanks for that question. Next we go, is it Patricia and Stephanie? Their hands are down, so I'm not sure if you still wanted to speak.
No.
Is that a no, Patricia?
Yeah.
Hello?
Yes.
Can you
No,
hear us?
can you hear me?
Yes.
Now I
Yeah,
can.
okay. I'm not sure, I didn't lower my hand, so maybe if it like is up too long, it goes down by itself. But anyway, my question was for the Kashawa after school care. I know that, well, I don't think there's been any talk about that at all. And I think that it might be a good option for our community out here to have that. I know that the staff there is looking forward to getting back to work, and with the preschool being just that short time, it might be a good option for kids out here that don't have the best internet access to have somewhere to go and also have some guidance and support with staff with distance learning. And I'm just wondering if that's been thought about or talked about, or if it's a possibility.
So can I take this one, Laura?
Yeah.
And I have to admit that I'm paying attention to 3.5 screens here right now, but I think the question was, can we use the Kashawa Center for supporting students? Is that correct? And so, yeah, we've been started discussions with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we've started discussions with that. We don't know what's really allowable. I mean, the general rules are to keep schools closed as far as schooling goes. And so our first priority is going to get a handle on the childcare needs of the group of parents who are regular attendees of, you know, the childcare programs, and the employees, so that we can get the employees back. Once we have a handle on that, I think we're looking at options and trying to be creative, find ways, especially for students without internet or students with special needs. We don't have the answer to that, but we're certainly paying close attention to that for when the time comes. And then Patricia, we also had Stephanie in your group who wanted to ask a question.
Yeah, so my question was about the preschool. Since my daughter is going to be going there, or at least I'm hoping so, but I didn't know, none of us out here in Kashawa know what's going on. Nobody has reached out to us. I just heard about this meeting today, a couple hours ago. So nobody, and I think that the community out here is kind of feeling left in the dark on purpose, or people are just too afraid to reach out and understand what's happening right now. So I'm kind of, like I said, I'm the only one that knows about this meeting. Nobody else in the community does. And I want to know why.
Well, mostly because we just haven't gotten there yet. Carmelo is opening on the 5th. And so we're like, we've got to get this up and rolling. I certainly have had meetings with Beth Frederick and Heather Sino-Wickeser, and they are starting to reach out to people in that community, as far as I know, for the preschool part of it. I have a meeting with them on Wednesday morning where I will be out at the center. So we aren't ignoring that community. Like Paul said, we're definitely having conversations about it, how we can best serve it, what we're allowed to do, and what would be most helpful for those families. So it's definitely on our radar. We want to communicate with you guys. It's just, we're just have a lot going on. We're getting there. We're getting there.
Yeah, and today, people just found out about this meeting. We've got employees at this meeting who didn't even get the announcement until like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So that's just the kind of timeline that we're on. This is a meeting that was originally not even planned, but announced on Wednesday at a spur of the moment board meeting. So thank you for understanding how this is all developing, and we're moving as fast as we can to get word out to you. And thanks for being here. Next up, we have Andrea Smith.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
I have a couple questions. Can you just confirm that each room will be only used for the 8 students and the 1 teacher, and it won't be like split shared, like with the 16 kids while the 8 are outside, the other 8 are inside, and vice versa?
Are you referring to Carmelo?
Yes.
Okay, yes, that is how we have it structured right now. Rooms, the infant room has 8 children with 2 adults. Room 3, which is our toddler room, has the 2-year-olds, the youngest 2-year-olds. They have is saying right now they have 8 children with 2 adults, but the rest of because you don't want to be left alone with like a child on the diaper changing table and another child needing assistance. So because they have a small group in the first place, we are leaving 2 adults in there. All the other ones have 1 teacher with 8 children in a classroom. And while we're in distance learning, the rest of the district, we have the space available to do that. We have an extra 4 rooms. But once we go to the hybrid model or back into in-person, that will have to change. And I think in hybrid, we will probably do just as you're saying, where we will trade off in the classrooms with some sanitation in between. And then once we go back into full person, we would go back to the normal way we keep the cohorts, the 16 together in a classroom.
And Annie, I think you mentioned you may have a second question. If you could raise your hand again, we'll put you back in the line, because we're going to give everyone a chance to ask one question first. And with that, looks like Annie is next. I'm not sure if Annie she's not on my screen anymore, so let me double check. Yeah, there you are. Annie, here you go. You can speak now.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, great. Thank you. Thank you for all the work you've done. We really appreciate it. My question is, I believe I received a receipt of tuition of August. I'm a parent from the River School for my kid. So I wonder if that's like something is already deducted. Will I get a refund for that or something?
It should not have been deposited yet. Did you mean you left us, you gave us a check?
Yes, I left the whole year's check.
Yeah, we will not deposit that. None of the T-Rex or River Rec fees have been deposited. So there's no refund because we haven't deposited them yet. We can shred those checks for you, or we can, you can come pick them up, or they can just stay in our safe until you want us to, until we go back into in-person.
All right. And then Zach, your hand went down, but I'm going to allow you to talk just in case you did still have a question. Zach, do you have a question for Laura? And hearing none, let's take our next person. And I think it's, I don't even know how to pronounce it. I'm going to say Gitanjali.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Yeah, I had a question regarding TK. And from my understanding, TK is going to be all distance learning.
Correct.
And I wanted to just understand what the schedule for that would look like. And is there any information that you can share on that?
I don't have that in front of me, but from my memory, she is going to be having some live interaction with a quarter of the class each day. And then there will be some pre-recorded lessons that you can watch when it's convenient for you and your child, when you can help them. And there will also be materials that will be sent home. So you'll come to Carmelo and pick up those packets. And then so that the lessons that she's going to give you with those recorded lessons will be combined with the materials that you've picked up. And so I'm not sure how often, but you'll have to come in and get new materials as the year goes, because the lessons may develop to need different kinds of materials.
All right, and then next up is Alexa. Here you go, Alexa. Are you there?
Hold on. I need to unmute myself, apparently.
Sorry.
There you are. So how are class graduations going to happen? So like if my 2-year-old's turning 3, will they jump classrooms?
No.
Okay.
Once they're in a classroom, they stay in that classroom for the whole year, unless they are under 2. If they're under 2 and they're in the infant program, the licensing requires that they move the month that they turn 24 months. But if they're already 24 months, then stay in the classroom that they started in August.
Okay, and then I think Amanda, you're next. Here you go, and you also need to unmute.
Hi, Laura. Can you hear me?
I can. Hi, Amanda.
Hi there. So forgive me. I think I think Kate may have asked a similar question, so I just didn't hear the exact answer I was looking for, so I'm sorry if you're having to repeat yourself.
Okay.
But this kind of goes with notification. So if a child or teacher were to be removed because of suspected COVID symptoms, would the remaining families in that cohort be immediately notified, or would they wait for a positive test result to come back from the removed child before the remainder of the cohort was notified?
Again, I have to follow the Department of Health, but I would imagine that we would absolutely be notifying the other children in that cohort if there was a suspicion. I have to say that I do have to follow what the health department tells me to do, but I would imagine that to be the case.
And then Will, you're going to be up next, and sounds like you need to unmute. There you go.
All right, thank you. And first, just a sincere note of support and compassion, Laura, for everything that you're doing. I know you're trying your best heading into this. So, and as a parent, there's scenarios that run in my head that I don't expect you to have the perfect answer for, like if an employee or a student's parent is not following the state or health guidelines, like what happens? Do they still get to go to these programs? I don't expect you to have an answer for that.
I don't anticipate that, but no.
It's so with anyways. So do you have any ideas, or has any parents have any ideas for closing those loopholes for doing better than the honor system?
Are you kind of referring to bringing your child to school when they're sick?
No, it could be, an employee or students. There's lots of scenarios, but like, let's say an employee or student's parent has people over to their house for dinner without wearing masks and no social distancing, stuff that, some people are doing.
Right. That I won't know about, right?
Sure. So I don't expect you to have, answers for that. But what I'm saying is, do you or have any parents presented you any ideas for closing those kinds of loopholes and just doing better than the honor system?
Huh. I hadn't really thought of that, to be honest. I hadn't really thought of that. I don't know how I would monitor that, except that to uphold our health policy as best we can. I guess that could be part of our questions in the morning, assuming somebody would be honest and answer that question. I'll certainly think about that, Will, that could certainly be part of our questions is, have you been exposed to others without, for a prolonged period of time without wearing a mask or something like that. I could certainly think about that, and I welcome your suggestions.
Thanks, Will. Next up is Miguel. And Miguel, you need to unmute. There you go.
I was wondering if Schoolsy could be expected, the Schoolsy platform for classrooms going forward as a method of communication, and for any news we might be interested in.
For Carmelo?
Yes.
Oh.
Well, generally, but yes.
Well, I know that the co-op program uses it, but we have not pursued that. We do use another software called Learning Genie, but we do not subscribe to the parent engagement component of it. And to be really honest with you, I don't want the teachers to have to be on their iPads all day. I really want them to be engaging with the children. And so I feel like they do send home regular communications through emails, through written communications, and when they drop off and pick up every day.
Thanks for that question. And next up is Andrea. If you still have a question, your hand went down, so.
Oh yeah, I still have a question.
Okay.
Thanks. Can you talk about the ventilation in each room? Like, are the doors going to be open? Are the windows going to be open? And then what percent do you think teaching will be outside, or do you anticipate being outside?
Yes. So all of our classrooms, I'm not sure if you're familiar with them, they have large windows on both sides up above, and those will all remain open for cross ventilation. And then they also have, and then they'll leave at least one door open at all times with that little baby gate so that the children can safely stay inside. And then the district has purchased for us fans that will go opposite from the open door so that it can blow air and continuously keep it moving through the classroom. And then as far as outdoor time, absolutely. And, we have lots of beautiful space out here. And so we will be using that space as much as possible.
And then next up, we've got Aubrey, if you're there. I see your hand also looks like it went down, or if you have a question, go for it.
Yeah, I haven't used this before, so I'm hoping that you can hear me. So circling back to Kate Marie's question, and then I think a parent just answered asked the question about, will we be notified, all that kind of information. And I'm wondering, with other preschools and daycare centers in the county that have been open during this time, has there been any communication with kind of best practices? I mean, in addition to whatever the county health department is and the CDC is telling us that we have to do, and how that's worked for some local groups?
Yes, absolutely. I have spent so many countless hours this summer on Zoom calls with other child care centers. Literally, I'm the chair of the local Monterey County Local Child Care Planning Council. I also sit on the Monterey Children's Council, which has an array of different people in mental health, you name it, in our county. And then I also sit on the emergency child care meetings that are every 2 weeks, that they're the ones who are arranging all of the centers that actually did stay open and served essential workers. So I have been in constant contact with all of those groups, as well as with the Head Start, Monterey County Head Start, out of the Monterey County Office of Education. And they have over 100 teachers across the county who have been serving children. And they have shared all of their fun expertise with me. One of the things that they shared that I definitely want to implement is having a school mask that is different from a home mask, so that the school mask stays at school, or face covering, and then we will wash it, all of them, at the end of the day. That way we know where that mask was. It wasn't at the bottom of somebody's car, other places. We can ensure that all of the masks are clean, because sometimes they touch them and then they're touching other things. This way we can control that part of it. So just things like that, I've been very much a part of all of those conversations.
And next up, we've got Krista. If you unmute, there you go.
Hi, Laura. Thank you so much for everything you're doing, and Paul and everyone. My question is, and I keep getting confused. So Carmelo TK is on.
It is distance. The TK program is distance. It will be distance learning.
Okay, and so so basically Hoyt will be at home then?
Yes. I can hear in your voice, Christy. Yes.
Yeah, they'll be doing online learning just like every other student from kindergarten up to grade 12. So that's a rule because of the condition that the county is in. We're on a watch list. So that was announced by the governor, and that's the rule we have to follow right now. I think Annalise Moore is up next. Let me find her. And Annalise, do you still have a question? Annalise, do you have a question? And hearing none, you can raise your hand again if we missed you. And then for this next person, would you please tell me how to pronounce your name, and then I will get it right forever forward. I would say Guttenhali or Guttenjali. It's your second question.
Hi there. Yeah, my name is Gitanjali. So you're
Gitanjali,
pretty
okay,
close.
got it.
Gitanjali, that's a very pretty name. Okay.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, so sorry, I couldn't, I had a follow-up question from my previous one regarding TK.
Mhm.
I just wanted to get a sense of the timeline when you'll be communicating out the schedules. I'm just asking because I have a middle schooler as well, so I want to make sure that, for the online learning, they both have, access to computers and a work area. Hence my eagerness to find the schedule.
Yes. I don't have that schedule yet, but I will work on it. So, Paul, do you guys, I know that we've talked about it in many meetings, when that schedule is due to go out for the rest of the schools?
They're all working out on this week.
Yeah.
You said your other students at the middle school, so that should be coming out this week. And Dan Morgan has his middle school presentation like this one. I think that's Wednesday, Tricia Z. Is that your recollection too? Wednesday night for the middle?
I'll repeat all of them in just a minute. Let me look it up.
Okay.
Paul, let me just tell you, Zach Friedman is back up here. I've
Okay.
tried to private message you. And then, just so you know.
All right, sounds good.
I've made a note of that. And so I will make sure that that TK schedule gets out as soon as possible.
And Annalise as well.
Good. And as for computers, which is the other part of your question, Gitanjali, Gitanjali, the district will be providing computers for all TK through 12th grade students. There's some slim chance that we'll be short at the beginning of the year, but I'm moving heaven and earth to try to make sure that doesn't happen. And worst case scenario, we've got families who have plenty of computers at home that will allow us to use the computers that we do have for those who need it.
So we have CHS virtual site present orientation tomorrow night, 6 to 7. Wednesday is CMS from 6 to 7. And Thursday is Tularcitos from 6 to 7, as well as River Elementary from 6 to 7.
Okay, and so next up is Zach.
Hi there, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
We were just wondering, given that roughly like 50% of children are asymptomatic, you guys have a protocol of taking temperatures. What is being done to address the asymptomatic carriers? Is there any testing, or is staff getting tested? What's being done to mitigate that?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that I don't think there's enough testing in our county to mitigate that.
It seems like a kind of a big risk, 50%.
It is. It certainly is. It is a big risk. It's one that we have to weigh against, having your preschool age child have social and emotional interactions with other people, and some people feel very strongly one way or the other. And I definitely respect parents, on both sides or anywhere in between on that. It is you're in a hard position right now. I understand that.
And next up is Annalise Moore. Your turn. Annalise, you are unmuted, but I can't hear you. Okay, if you don't mind raising your hand again when you are ready, and we'll get you another chance. So now, Stacy is up next. Stacy, it's your turn.
Hi, Laura. I miss you so much, and thank you for all of your hard work.
Thank you.
I just have a question about substitutes. because I know it's going to come up where, you know, the teachers have to stay home for whatever reason may come up. Will we be notified in advance, hopefully maybe like the morning when there will be a substitute?
Yes. Thank you for bringing that up, because yes, I do plan on doing that, because I know that there are some people who would just prefer not to bring their child to school that day. So yes.
Yes, probably. Yeah.
Yes, we have reached out to our usual substitutes to make sure that they, you know, are, you know, ready and willing to come back. And we have heard from several that they are, you know, ready and happy to come back. So I think we're in good shape there. But yes, thank you for bringing that up, because I do plan on notifying parents.
Great idea. Kate Marie, your turn.
Hey, me again. Okay,
Hey.
so hi. So Laura, in reading your email, which was super many of my questions, one thing that I had a concern about was face shields. It sounded like, and correct me if I'm wrong because I could have misinterpreted this, it sounded that if a student refuses to wear their face mask or is struggling to wear their face mask, that they might be offered a face shield. And I believe at this point the literature says that face shields are really only productive if a face mask is worn with them.
Yes.
So my concern is if I'm understanding correctly, why offer a face shield? Why are the kids even in masks? I mean, of course, I want them to be in masks, but why offer a face shield without a mask as a solution? But I could be misinterpreting that, and if so, I apologize. Thank you.
Oh, it's okay. What I was addressing, what I meant to address anyway, if it wasn't clear, is I have had questions from some parents who want their child to come in a face mask. And I said, yes, they can come in a face mask. We will still highly encourage them to wear their school mask with their face shield. Again, if they are, you know, struggling with it, if it is just coming off, a face shield is better than nothing. And so I would still encourage in very positive language. We are not going to be like turn into police about these masks, and we're going to be like, remember, this is how we keep safe. We're going to really proactively, directly teach children about how to wear their mask, how to ask if they need a break and they can take off their mask and do something that's away from the other children in the class. Really try to encourage positive, like, let's give each other some more space, you know, let's all, you know, just really trying to not make it a punitive environment, because that goes against everything we believe in, but really trying to make it as supportive as we possibly can while keeping the children safe as we can.
All right, next up is Tess Arthur. Tess, we had your hand raised a moment ago. Are you still up for a question?
Yes, hi, thanks, Paul. And thank you, Laura, for putting this together. I think this is a very valid town hall and needed to happen. But my question is, what are your current numbers for both Apple Pie Preschool and Kashawa Preschool? And I just was curious what the outreach and communication has been with those communities.
Yeah, well, we have reached out to the Big Sur community through the food drop-offs and things like that over the summer, and handed out our registration packets and things. Of course, that was before we were even in this whole distance thing. But right now, I think I have about 7 children enrolled at Apple Pie, and I have 2 teachers. So my kind of gut feeling is if it got up to maybe 10 children, I think I would stop there so that they could separate into 5 and 5 groups, being outdoors and indoors, and sanitize in between, and trying to keep those as separate as possible. But right now it's not. I think it's about 6 or 7. As far as the Kashawa Preschool, I don't have any registered students for that program yet. But Beth has assured me that she knows of several who are very interested in coming, and she is in the process of reaching out to those families.
Okay, thank you.
And by the way, folks, if you don't know, that was Tess Arthur. She's one of our school board members. I think there's others here tonight listening in on this conversation because they're very involved. And thanks, Tess, for being here. Next, people keep disappearing from my screen. So this one was Sarah Mickus Martin. Sarah, do you still have a question?
I do.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, good. First of all, thank you so much. I know everybody's just working around the clock here, and so grateful for this community and your work. So thank you. I just had a question. My child is in 3rd grade, T-Rex program, and Mr. Peterson's email today said that October 9th was the suggested date to go back to the hybrid model. And I was just curious about why that date was chosen and the thinking behind that. And then also, should we go back to the every other day hybrid model that was proposed a week or so ago before the governor's mandate? How does that affect after school programs? Is it if you only have access to after school care if it's the day that you're meant to be? I mean, obviously I know this is all like a giant puzzle piece, but just trying to get some more information about how to plan.
It really is. It's a giant Sudoku puzzle. You know what I mean? I'm just like, I was trying to work on that plan when we were, suggesting a hybrid model, and it wasn't an easy answer. I didn't really have it completely figured out. So before I got it figured out, we shifted over to the distance. So I didn't really finish that puzzle. But whenever that happens, that's when, the people who were enrolled, we will just we will just start where we left off as far as offering services for T-Rex again. I don't know what it exactly will look like, though, to be very honest with you.
All right, next up is Lindsay, and you are the very important person at Tularcito School.
Yes.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Now you have to listen to my kids scream in the background. I apologize. Okay, 2 questions. One is, do we have the option to put our kids in a disposable mask each day versus the given mask?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, and then this might sound silly, but is the gate in the younger wings where the doors are going to be open, is the gate in securely to where my children cannot push them out?
The gates
that you're going to have in the doorway?
Yes. Yes, they're like baby gates, you know what I mean, that are in the door jamb.
Okay. Because I know we're not supposed to be bolting anything in, so that's kind of why I ask.
Yeah. They're the kind that, you would use in your home, that are tension inside the door jamb.
All right, great questions. Next up, Leslie. Go ahead and unmute. Leslie, we can't hear you. It looks like you're unmuted, but we can't hear you. Oh, sorry about that. If you still have a question, you can go ahead and raise your hand again, and we'll get you back on to our list. Next up, Ryan. Ryan, it's your turn.
Hi, this is actually Annalise on Ryan's computer. Can you hear me? Hi.
Yes, finally. Good. There you are.
Hey, thank you so much, Laura and Paul and Trisha and all the parents here. So my question is, it's been touched on, but I read through your very detailed email, Laura, about the protocols. I appreciated that. And this is regarding the sick policy. You mentioned taking the temperature of the parent who's dropping off the child. I appreciate that. And then in response to someone else's question, you said there would be some parent questions that would be asked. And I'm very interested in having that be pretty comprehensive, because I understand that people need to work, but I feel strongly that if there's anyone in the household who's symptomatic or could be, that we really need to err on the side of caution and have that be a clearly communicated expectation for all parents. So it's sort of a question and sort of a comment. Are you still finalizing that that communication piece?
It's in writing for me, literally from the the Department of Health and Actually, I think this came from, anyway, it came from one of those meetings I was at, that it states, really quite clearly the questions, do you live in the same household with, or have you had close contact with someone who in the past 14 days has been in isolation for COVID, or has had a test confirming that they have a virus, or have you had contact in less than 6 feet for 15 minutes? So there's a whole thing that they're going to have to ask parents. I hope that helps.
Thanks for that.
I welcome your suggestions too. If you want to email me some suggestions, please, I'm happy to look those over.
Next up, Stephanie, it's your turn.
Hi there. Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi, Stephanie.
Okay. Hi. This goes back to the asymptomatic question, and you may not have the answer, but as far as like staff, has there been any talk or any decision on having them tested before school starts, or is that unreasonable to ask?
It's not unreasonable, but I got tested myself just because I wanted to make sure, but at this point it's taking 10 to 12 days for those test results to come back. And all it tells you is if you actually had it on that day that you were tested. So I could get tested and then tomorrow I could be positive. So it's not really going to do us a whole lot of good to test everybody. There has been talk about doing this, and it is suggested if by the health department under certain circumstances that they do this rolling testing of every 2 weeks. They test, some of your staff or whatever, but we haven't gotten there yet, is my answer, but I'm not opposed to it. Some of my staff we've definitely talked about it in staff meetings. It hasn't happened yet though.
All right, and so we've got one more question up from Marie, but before we call on Marie, just to let folks know, this is the last 5 minutes. Sorry, I've got a timer going. This is the last 5 minutes of the meeting for the general public for our programs with Laura, and then the last half hour from 7 to 7:30 will be for employees only for their specific questions. And with that, let's give Marie a turn. And so if you are an employee and you have a question that just involves employees, you can go ahead and raise your hand and we'll start queuing you up. Marie, here you go. If you go ahead and unmute.
Hi. I just had a quick question about how punctual we have to be in the morning. It seems like, there's a lot that needs to happen just to get your kid into school, and for good reason, but I just wanted to make sure I got him there at the right time. So
I didn't hear the first part of your question.
How punctual?
Oh, well, yeah. No, it's okay if you're staggered as far as if you don't have to be there right at 8 o'clock or right at 8:30. You can come later. It's just not before that time because your teacher won't be there.
Okay.
And then we do have, just today I met with the company and got a quote for all of the signage that goes around the school. And so there will be different gates that you'll be going into for different classrooms to just make sure that everybody is spread out and that you don't have to wait too long to get into your classroom and get screened and go through this whole process. But it will take a little longer than it used to drop off your child just because we have to go through this process.
Okay, next and the last question again for the general public is for Kate Marie. You're a font of questions tonight. Yes.
I'm sorry. I really am sorry about this. My last question is, because I'm just like going down this hole, but if for whatever reason Carmelo or our cohort had more than once had to be sort of shut down and quarantined because of potential COVID cases, is there a formula or anything in the works in terms of paying tuition when Carmelo is not available because and it's out of your control because kids are sick and you can't send your kid to school? Is there some type of formula for tuition for that, if that makes sense?
I can only go on what we did in the spring. Certainly we refunded all tuition in the spring. There is certain rules I have to follow for families who are on state funding. I know that in the spring, the state would not allow us to refund the family fees, but I can only go on what happened in the spring. I don't know how that would work going forward. I would assume that there would be some sort of credit going forward.
And we've got one last question from Heather, who kind of straddles the line between parent and employee, and she's with Patricia. So Patricia, I'm going to try to allow you to talk so you can hand the phone over to Heather. You should be available now if you unmute.
Hi, I can wait till the staff part.
Okay, sounds good. That's fine.
That helps.
And you can go ahead and raise your hand as Patricia, just so we don't lose track of you, because that's the name I need to look for to be able to allow you to speak. All right, well, with that, anyone who is not an employee should go ahead and check out of the meeting. And
Okay, great.
then
Thank you
we'll
so
take just a couple-minute break here in order to give folks time to log off of the meeting unless they are an employee with a question for us. Thanks.